First contact and confrontation. The vast expanse of space stretched before Admiral Xerth as he observed the holographic display dominating the command center of the Nara's flagship, Eternal Glory. For 12 generations, the Nara's empire had expanded without meaningful resistance, their biomechanical technology and unified hive-like social structure making them virtually unstoppable against the scattered civilizations they encountered. Sovereign Admiral, we've detected an unusual vessel approaching the outer marker of Sector 7, reported Sub-Commander Vextra, her translucent appendages rippling with bioluminescent patterns, indicating curiosity and mild concern. Xerth's 4 eyes narrowed as the display zoomed in on a small metallic craft moving at impressive speed toward their newest mining colony. The vessel was unlike anything in their extensive archives. Asymmetrical, seemingly crude in design, yet achieving velocities that should have been impossible for such primitive construction. Origin. Xerth demanded, mandibles clicking with irritation. Unknown, Sovereign Admiral. It bears markings we cannot translate, but spectral analysis indicates it emerged from the third planet of the Yellow Star system we designated as inconsequential in our last expansion survey. Xerth remembered the system. A backwater region with a single habitable world inhabited by bipedal creatures barely capable of reaching their own moon. The Nars had catalogued them as pre-spacefaring and not worth the resources for immediate conquest. Clearly, that assessment had been premature. Intercept and analyze. If they resist, neutralize. The Eternal Empire cannot permit unknown entities to approach our resource centers. The Nars interceptor vessel, sleek and organic in design, moved swiftly through the darkness, its living hull pulsating with energy as it approached the human ship. The communication officer initiated first contact protocols, transmitting the standard demands for identification and submission that had broken the will of countless species before. Aboard the human exploration vessel Pathfinder, Captain Maya Rodriguez stared at the alien transmission appearing on her screens, her heart racing with equal parts excitement and apprehension. Humanity's first confirmed alien contact was happening under her command. "Can we translate it?" she asked her communications specialist. "Working on it, Captain. But their transmission contains bioelectric patterns unlike anything in our databases. It might take time." The alien vessel grew larger in their viewports, its design unlike anything human engineers had conceived, more like a living organism than a constructed ship. "They're scanning us," reported the tactical officer. "Intense energy readings. They're penetrating our shields." Rodriguez straightened her uniform. "Open all frequencies. Let's try to communicate our peaceful intentions before this gets out of hand." But the Nars interceptor had already categorized the Pathfinder as primitive and potentially hostile. Without waiting for a response to their demands, they fired a warning shot, a pulse of energy designed to disable the human vessel's primary systems. What happened next would become legendary in both human and Nars history records. The Pathfinder not only absorbed the energy pulse, but redirected it through its experimental adaptive shielding, a technology developed for passing through solar flares. The redirected energy scattered harmlessly into space, while the human vessel remained operational. "What just happened?" demanded Xerth as reports flooded in from the interceptor. "Impossible," stammered Vextra. "The primitive vessel somehow neutralized our standard disabling pulse. They're now transmitting a response." The message was simple, transmitted in multiple formats and mathematical sequences designed to be universally understood. "We come in peace and seek dialogue. Your aggressive action has been deflected without retaliation as a gesture of goodwill." Xerth's exoskeleton flushed with the blue hue of indignation. "They dare to lecture us on aggression. The arrogance of lesser species knows no bounds. Destroy them." The Nars interceptor launched a full barrage of energy weapons, expecting to vaporize the human vessel instantly. Instead, the Pathfinder executed a series of maneuvers that should have been impossible given its design, avoiding most of the barrage. What couldn't be avoided was once again absorbed by the adaptive shields. Then the human vessel did something truly shocking. It fired back. not with devastating force, but with precisely calculated electromagnetic pulses that temporarily disrupted the Nars ship's biological components without causing permanent damage. "They've disabled our weapons and propulsion without destroying us," reported the stunned interceptor commander. "They're requesting communication again." Cirth could barely contain his rage. A primitive species had not only survived, but had effectively neutralized a Nars military vessel without destroying it, a level of restraint and precision that the Nars themselves had never bothered to develop. "Return to base immediately," Cirth ordered. "All units prepare for war protocols. These humans must be studied, then eradicated before they become a genuine threat." Over the next 3 Earth months, multiple contact attempts by human diplomatic vessels were rebuffed or met with hostility. The Nars, despite their technological supremacy in many areas, remained baffled by human adaptability and their seemingly contradictory behaviors, capable of both remarkable restraint and devastating effectiveness when provoked. In the vast war chamber of the Nars homeworld, Cirth presented his findings to the Sovereign Collective. "These humans are dangerous precisely because they are unpredictable. They lack the unified purpose of our hive, yet somehow coordinate effectively. Their technology is inferior yet surprisingly adaptable. Most concerning, they seem to improve rapidly with each encounter." The Sovereign Collective pulsed with the deep purple light of consensus. "Then we shall not allow them time to adapt further. Prepare the extinction fleet. The human worlds will be purged before they can become a genuine competitor in our territory." Meanwhile, on Earth, the Global Defense Council reviewed the first contact reports with growing concern. Admiral Lena Takamura stood before the assembled representatives of Earth's united governments, her expression grave. "The aliens we now know as the Nars have rejected every diplomatic overture. Their biology and psychology appear fundamentally different from our own. They operate with a hive mentality that seems incapable of conceptualizing peaceful coexistence with species they deem inferior. And they clearly consider us inferior," added Dr. Alejandro Reyes, cynobiology expert. "Despite our technological achievements, they see our diversity and individualism as weaknesses. The Pathfinder incident, while impressive, has only confused and angered them." President Chen nodded solemnly. "Then we must prepare for the worst while hoping for peace. Implement Phoenix Protocol immediately. If the Nars won't talk, we'll need to show them why humanity should never be underestimated." As the Nars extinction fleet assembled, gathering ships from across their vast empire, humanity raced against time. The Phoenix Protocol, a contingency plan developed generations ago for exactly this scenario, was activated. Research facilities worldwide pivoted to military applications, and the orbital shipyards accelerated production of vessels incorporating the adaptive technologies that had saved the Pathfinder. Captain Liam Chen, Maya Rodriguez's husband and commander of Earth's first true battleship, the Defiance, watched as his crew prepared for what might be humanity's greatest challenge. Unlike the elegant biomechanical ships of the Nars, human vessels were diverse in design, reflecting the varied approaches of different cultures and thinking that had finally united in the face of an existential threat. "They're coming," Liam told his assembled officers. "Our long-range detectors have confirmed a massive fleet approaching the outer colonies, but they don't understand what they're facing. Throughout our history, humanity has faced extinction-level threats from nature, from ourselves, and now from the stars. Each time, we've adapted and survived. That's our greatest strength, and it's something the Nars, for all their technological advancement, cannot comprehend." As the first Nars warships appeared near the human colony on Europa, humanity prepared to teach them a costly lesson about underestimating a species that had evolved through countless adversities, a species that thrived not despite challenges, but because of them. Part 2. Human Innovation and Resolution. The Nars' attack on the Europa colony was meant to be a swift demonstration of superiority, a precursor to systematic extermination. Their vast warships, resembling massive insects crafted from living metal, emerged from faster-than-light travel and immediately deployed their standard conquest protocol. No warnings, no demands for surrender, only overwhelming force against what they presumed would be helpless defenders. They were wrong. Captain Liam Chen stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching tactical displays as the NAR's fleet positioned for their assault. "All ships, execute Hydra formation," he commanded, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "Remember your training. These aliens think in unified patterns. We don't. That's our advantage." "Human Commander," Kirth began, "you have demonstrated capabilities that defy our understanding. The Sovereign Collective requires explanation before determining how to proceed." Liam stood tall. "Admiral Xerth, we have nothing to explain. We defended ourselves against unprovoked aggression, as any sentient species would. What requires explanation is your Empire's policy of extermination rather than cooperation." For perhaps the first time in his long existence, Xerth experienced something approaching introspection. Our species evolved through consensus and unified purpose. For millennia, we encountered only lesser beings who fell easily before our advance or were assimilated into our collective. You are different. "We are human," Liam replied simply. "Throughout our history, we have faced countless challenges: natural disasters, self-inflicted wars, biological threats. Each time, we adapted, not as a hive mind, but as individuals creating solutions that benefit the whole. Our strength is our diversity of thought and approach." What followed was unprecedented in NAR's history: a genuine negotiation rather than demands for submission. The initial ceasefire expanded into diplomatic talks, with both species cautiously exploring the possibility that they might coexist despite their fundamental differences. 6 months later, on the newly established neutral station orbiting Jupiter's moon Callisto, representatives from both species gathered to formalize what was being called the Adaptive Accord. Dr. Elinga Rodriguez Chen, Maya and Liam's daughter and now Earth's foremost xenoanthropologist, presented the human perspective. The Nards evolved in an environment that rewarded uniformity and hierarchy, she explained to the assembled human dignitaries. Their homeworld experienced minimal climate variation and few natural disasters. Their predators were predictable. Evolutionary pressure favored genetic consistency and unified response. While we, added President Adebayo, evolved on a planet of constant change and challenge, where diversity of thought and approach became our greatest survival tool. Admiral Xerth, now serving as the NAR's diplomatic envoy, a position created specifically for this unprecedented situation, addressed the gathering with newly developed translator technology. The Sovereign Collective has determined that humanity represents not merely a species to be conquered or avoided, but potentially a symbiotic counterpart. Your individualism, which we once perceived as weakness, creates innovations our unified thinking cannot conceive. Conversely, our collective consciousness achieves efficiencies your fragmented societies cannot match. The Adaptive Accord established boundaries, trading protocols, and knowledge exchange programs, but perhaps most importantly, it recognized a fundamental truth. Different evolutionary paths could produce equally valid approaches to sentience and civilization. As the ceremony concluded, Liam found himself standing beside Admiral Xerth, gazing out at the stars visible through Callisto Station's vast observation dome. "We came very close to destroying each other," Liam observed. Xerth's appendages rippled with the bioluminescent pattern that humans were learning to recognize as thoughtful consideration. The Nars have conquered hundreds of species across 12 star systems, yet never encountered one that made us question our own nature. "That's the thing about human adaptability," Liam replied. "Sometimes the most important adaptation isn't technological, but conceptual, learning to see the universe differently." As ships from both species navigated the space around Callisto Station, their designs already beginning to incorporate elements inspired by each other, a new chapter in galactic history had begun. one where humanity's greatest strength had proven not to be their weapons or their ships, but their endless capacity to adapt, innovate, and turn adversity into advantage. And across the stars, other civilizations watched with interest as word spread of the species that had done the impossible, teaching the mighty Nars Empire that uniformity was not the only path to strength. The human defense fleet, though outnumbered, suddenly split into unpredictable patterns. Rather than forming a standard defensive line, they scattered in what appeared to be chaos, but was actually a carefully choreographed dance of individual initiative within a strategic framework. The Nars commanders, accustomed to enemies who either formed rigid formations or scattered in genuine panic, found themselves unable to prioritize targets effectively. The human vessels, each operating with considerable autonomy, attacked from multiple vectors simultaneously. Sovereign Commander, their vessels are not behaving according to any known tactical doctrine, reported the Nars flagship's tactical officer, appendages flashing with confusion. They appear to be acting independently yet somehow maintain coordination. Admiral Xerth watched in mounting frustration as his perfectly orchestrated attack dissolved into a series of isolated engagements, each playing out differently as human captains adapted to their specific Nars opponents. Most infuriating was their refusal to follow predicted patterns. When Nars tactics succeeded against one human ship, the others immediately altered their approaches rather than making the same mistakes. The battle for Europa became a testing ground for humanity's greatest strength, innovative adaptation under pressure. When the Nars deployed their bioelectric disruption fields, human engineers quickly remodulated their shields. When Nars living missiles sought the heat signatures of human engines, those engines briefly went cold, using momentum and short auxiliary bursts to maintain maneuverability. Most impressive was the deployment of humanity's newest weapon, ADAPT's Adaptive Defense and Penetration Technology System. Unlike conventional weapons with fixed parameters, ADAPT's constantly analyzed enemy responses and modified its approach, learning with each exchange. Aboard the Defiance, Liam received reports from across the battle space. "Sir, they're pulling back from sectors 7 through 12. The Nard ships are regrouping. They're adapting to our adaptation," Liam murmured. "Just as we expected. Execute Phoenix 2. Across the human fleet, a new command was relayed. Vessels that had been performing certain roles suddenly switched functions. Defensive ships became offensive platforms, long-range attackers moved to close quarters, and vice versa. The entire battlefield dynamic shifted before the Nars could consolidate their new strategy. In the Nars flagship's command center, Admiral Xerth faced something he'd never experienced in centuries of warfare: uncertainty. How can they coordinate such complex tactical shifts without central control? He demanded. The answer came not from his subordinates, but from Dr. Thella, the fleet's chief cynobiologist. "Sovereign Admiral, I believe we have fundamentally misunderstood human psychology. Our intelligence suggested their individualism was a weakness, but they've weaponized it. Each commander appears empowered to make significant decisions within a flexible framework." "Impossible," Xerth hissed. "No species can maintain cohesion without rigid hierarchy." "Yet the evidence surrounds us," Thella countered, risking significant punishment for her candor. "They are not simply fighting. They're innovating during combat itself." As the battle raged on, the Nard's advantage of numbers began to erode. Their losses mounted not because human weapons were superior, they weren't, but because human tactics continuously evolved, while Nars' responses required consensus and hierarchical approval. The turning point came when the Defiance, using data gathered from the entire fleet, identified a previously unknown vulnerability in the Nars' biomechanical systems. Their ships' hulls resonated at specific frequencies when their defensive systems recalibrated. Captain Chen ordered a coordinated attack exploiting this weakness, resulting in the disabling of 3 Nars capital ships simultaneously. Admiral Xerth, facing the unthinkable prospect of defeat, made an unprecedented decision. "Cease attack. Initiate communication protocols." The human fleet, though poised to press their advantage, held position as the communication came through. On the Defiance, Liam opened the channel with caution. The face that appeared on the view screen was alien in every sense. 4 violet eyes arranged around a central sensory node, mandibles flanking a speaker orifice that pulsed with bioluminescence as it converted thoughts to sounds.